So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Thursday evening Parent Academy webinar session. Thank you for joining us. And again, we are excited to have you as audience listeners, participants. And my name is Tina Folston Hayes. I am the Parent Academy Specialist with Educational Equity and Outreach for Alachua County Public Schools, and I would like to welcome you this evening. Tonight, we will receive some helpful information from our guest speakers who are joining us from the New Worlds Reading Initiative.
Thank you, Tina. My name is Erica.
Before we begin,
Sorry.
Absolutely, no worries, Erica. So just before we begin, let's go over a few housekeeping elements. Please keep your microphones on mute through the duration of the presentation. We will be monitoring your questions and responses and respond accordingly. Please use the Q&A feature located at the bottom of the webinar window. And please note that all Parent Academy webinars, closed caption, recorded, and posted to our website to access for a later date and re-review for any individuals who could not tune in tonight. Your questions will be answered at the conclusion of each session. If you have a specific need or have an outside conversation about whatever it is that you hear tonight, you can definitely email the Parent Academy, and that email is parentacademy@sbac.edu. We'll get those questions answered for you through the team that is joining us tonight. So now I would like to present our guest speakers for this evening, the New World Reading Initiative. And I'll go ahead and let you take over, Miss Erica.
Thank you, Tina. Sorry about that earlier. My name is Erica Fritz
No
Oaks.
worries.
I am the engagement manager for the New Worlds Reading Initiative. I am joined tonight by several of my colleagues. We have Nasika Dennis, who is a New Worlds Reading Engagement Specialist for Alachua County and the region around you all. We have Michelle McGriff, who serves up in Jacksonville in that Northeast area. Shelly Payne, who serves our Panhandle as an engagement specialist. Lourdes Salgado, who is South Florida. And then one of our lovely literature and literacy experts, Danielle McMaster, has joined us as well tonight. And we will be presenting. We are so excited to have you join and to learn a little bit about New Worlds Reading Initiative and some reading strategies for you all to use at home with your children. And I will pass it over to Nasika Dennis.
All right, thanks, Erica. All right, so before we get started with today's presentation, we'd love to learn a little bit more about you. We always start our presentations and meetings with what we call an opening move. This evening, our opening move is called This or That. Our question for this or that is, which do you prefer, a book or a movie? To participate, please choose your favorite option, book or movie, then type in the chat which one you prefer and tell us why. Throughout today's presentation, we'll be giving you plenty of opportunities to chat back and interact with us. We encourage you to get involved. While the unmute feature is disabled in this presentation, the chat is always available to you, and you can email us with any questions you have. A critical part of our mission is to provide families with practical supporting resources that build reading confidence. We want all students to develop positive views of themselves and develop a love for reading. We understand that some students who are striving readers don't opt to read due to various reasons. Some reasons are they aren't interested in the topic, they don't seem to understand or see the point of reading. Reading a book feels overwhelming. they're struggling with early reading skills. The goal of this session is to present a fun and engaging reading strategy named Crowd. We anticipate that you will leave this session full of excitement and confidence to implement this strategy with your students. So again, please feel free to use the chat. And again, we're doing this or that, whether it's a book or a movie. And as you all are doing that, we can move on to, I'll pass it back to Erica.
Thank you, Nasika. So a little bit about us. With New Worlds Reading Initiative, we are with the University of Florida Lastinger Center, and our mission is to improve the quality of teaching, learning, and caregiving. We research, develop, and scale equitable educational innovations for adults and children that put all learners on trajectories for lifelong success. This year, we are celebrating our 20th year of operation and have long provided supports to both students and educators in early learning, literacy, and mathematics. In 2021, the center was honored to be named the administrator of New Worlds Reading Initiative. And this helps us to continue our work to support students and educators while also extending the reach of learning to support families and caregivers. And Nasika, I'll pass it back to you to go over our agenda for tonight.
Miss
Nasika, I think
Nasika,
you're
I
on
think you are
mute.
still on mute.
Sorry. Okay, so we're here for an hour today. We will be talking about some simple strategies to help enhance your child's reading experience. Just to give you an overview of our hour, we will start by learning about the strategies. Then we will have some time to let you practice using the strategies. Towards the end of the program, we will talk with you about our free state-funded program, New Worlds Reading, to provide resources to build your child's reading skills. While the unmute feature is disabled in this presentation, our presenters will be answering your questions as we go along. We will also have a question and answer session towards the end of the presentation. So if we don't manage to answer your questions as we go, we can address concerns at the end of the session. I will now pass it on to Michelle.
Thank you, Nasika. So let's talk about the crowd strategy. This is a reading strategy we'd love to introduce you to do today. CROWD is an acronym, and it's a way to help you remember different types of questions you can ask your child as you read together. When you read with your child, it is important to make the experience an interactive one. We ask questions before, during, and after reading as a way to check understanding, make connections between books and our lives, experience new ideas, and think about the world around us. As parents, we help our children gain more meaning from the reading experience by asking questions and starting discussions. The crowd strategies are a way to think about the questions you ask your child in a different way. Share books with your children that allow them to be active participants. Prompt children by asking questions. So, crowd, what does it stand for? The C in crowd stands for completion. R is for recall. O is open-ended questions. W is WH questions. Who, what, when, where, why. And D is for distancing. As we read with our children, we want to use a variety of questions to interact with what we're reading about. The fun thing about this strategy is that it is useful for all ages and all ability levels. So let's jump in. Completion prompts are the C portion of the crowd strategy. Completion prompts ask children to fill in the blanks. Typically, you're using these types of questions when you're reading books with repetitive phrases or rhymes. To use the completion prompt, you pause as you're saying a statement and allow your child some time to finish your sentence. Let's look at this strategy in action in a few of our New Worlds books. So we have this children's classic, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. It repeats the line, and he was still hungry, a number of times. So let's look at this. On Tuesday, the very hungry caterpillar ate through 2 pears, and he was still, if you want to take a quick moment and type what he still was in the chat, you can tell me how we are doing this completion strategy. He was still hungry. By pausing to allow your child to complete the phrase, you keep your child focused on the story. Completion prompts encourage your child to notice the structure of the book. The very hungry caterpillar was hungry for an entire week before he ate too much and got a stomach ache. Completion prompts are also a great way to draw attention to the sounds in rhymes. When reading a rhyme, stop before completing the rhyme and allow your child to complete the rhyme. If your child makes a mistake, go back to the first part of the rhyme and emphasize the sound to help your child begin to hear the rhyme. Let's do an old school rhyme. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great jump. Now, does jump rhyme with wall? Can you type in the chat what word rhymes with wall? If you typed fall, you're correct. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. One important thing to remember when you're reading with your child is that many of these tasks will be new to them. Young children sometimes require extra time to think about what you're asking them to do. It is important to stop, wait, and prompt again if your child does not answer immediately. We'd love to hear from you in the chat. Just type a quick yes or no to let us know if you've ever used this strategy when you're reading with your child. So we also use completion prompts with older children, and these can be really quick check-ins. Most books for older children don't use a repetitive structure, but completion prompts are great to see if your child has caught a vocabulary or names. So let's look at the book, I Survived Hurricane Katrina 2005. So completion questions you may ask are, a destructive storm with violent winds and lots of rainfall is called a what? In the chat, you can type that answer. Another completion question would be, Barry and his family survived a hurricane named what? So if you type the answers hurricane and Katrina, you help with that completion sentence there. The examples here ask children to complete your sentence with something they've learned from the text. Completion prompts are perhaps the simplest prompts, but they're only part of the crowd group of they're not the only part of the crowd group of strategies. Keep in mind as we go through the rest of the strategies that you want to use a variety of types of questions in order to get the best discussions. So let's move to the letter R in crowd. R stands for recall. This is when you're asking your children to go back into the story and recall an important piece of information from the story. We use recall questions to check in with our children and make sure they understand key pieces of information while they are reading. These types of questions help to teach them about the structure of stories and encourage them to remember facts. This is one of the first steps to building reading comprehension and helps our children train their brains to remember important information. So let's look at the book Hungry Caterpillar again. Let's do recall in action. When using recall prompts with children, we're asking them to go back into the story and use it as a reference. We didn't read this story to you tonight, but I'm going to share a few recall questions that we may use with this particular book. Can you tell me some of the foods that the caterpillar ate when he was hungry? What was the last thing he ate? Before he turned into a butterfly, what did the hungry caterpillar do? We're asking them to tell us facts about what happened. Remember that this might be a skill that requires some time for children to think about the story. One important way to enhance this skill is to ask your child to recall what happened in the story and then show you in the book as well. This is a great way for them to check their answer and make changes if they realize misremembered a piece of the story. Being able to recall important information is a lifelong skill that we use in our lives daily. So we're going to go back to that chat again, and we want to hear from you. Just type a quick guess about how often you think you ask recall questions when you're reading with your child. There's no right or wrong answer. Definitely just write a guess of how often you think you use recall questions. We also use recall with older children as well. So again, we didn't read this book to you, but we have some examples of recall questions that we may use with the book, I Survived Hurricane Katrina. Where is Barry now? Why couldn't Barry's family leave? How does Barry come to be friendly with Cruz? Tell me what happened in this chapter. Recall questions can be as simple as asking children to recall names or a sequence of events. We use these questions with older children the same way we do with younger children. We're checking to make sure that they are understanding what they read. You can use recall questions during or after reading. Chapter books are often read over a period of time. When reading longer texts at the start of each reading session, ask your child to recall what has happened so far. Ask them what they remember about what they have already read before going on with the story. As they are reading, ask children recall questions to check their understanding. Change the frequency of questions to match your child. If your child is having difficulty remembering what happened on a page, ask them a recall question every paragraph and encourage them to return to the book to check their answers. At the end of the chapter, ask about events that happened or about other facts that were presented. Most importantly, this is the kind of question you can ask your child even if they're reading independently. At any point, you can ask, what are you reading? What is happening with the characters? Where are they now? And what happened to them in this chapter? So I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Lourdes to share the other letters in the crowd strategy. Lourdes?
Hello there. I hope you're having a great time. So I'm going to move on right along with the letter O for open-ended prompts. These are the O portion of the crowd strategy. Open-ended questions are just what they sound like. They're questions that don't have a simple answer. So there's no single right or wrong answer for these questions. They ask your child to put together their knowledge to explain. Open-ended questions are used with the text of a story, but it can also be used with illustrations to encourage children to read the pictures and get a more nuanced understanding of what is going on in the story. Picture books especially will give children a greater understanding of the text when they compare the words that are written and the information the illustrator adds to the pictures. We use open-ended questions when reading nonfiction books as well. These open-ended questions really give children the opportunity to show what they know. These questions require children to elaborate on their thinking. They can be answered in a variety of ways and usually bring about a longer response from your child. So while I'm explaining how this strategy plays out with a few books, I would love to hear from you in the chat. What kind of open questions do you think you would like to ask your child when you're reading along with them? Open-ended questions give you the opportunity to put the knowledge into practice. They answer the questions in their own words. As you're answering these questions, children are gaining expressing language skills as they practice putting their ideas together into explanatory sentences. You can encourage their sentence building skills by repeating their sentence fragments back to them as full sentences. For example, if your child answered full to the first question in the slide, how do you think that he feels now? You can respond with, I think so too. The caterpillar feels full because he's eaten too much. Other example of open-ended questions will include, why do you think he was so hungry? What did you see in the picture? Open-ended questions become more and more important for older readers. These questions ask children to think about all they have read, pull out the important parts of the information, and then condense information and say it in their own words. Help your child improve this skill by prompting them to tell me more when they provide one-word answers. Alternatively, if you have a child that likes to tell you every single fact when they ask an open-ended question, help them learn to summarize by modeling. So for example, after your child has given you a very long description of everything in the book, ask a clarifying question such as, wow, so if I understand you correctly, you mean, is that right? Other examples of open-ended questions include, for example, having to do with the book on the screen, I Survived Hurricane Katrina. Tell me more about how Barry is feeling in this chapter. Tell me more about how Hurricane Katrina affects the characters in this story. Look at the front cover of the book. What would happen if someone had to survive a hurricane without any shelter? Now, this is an important skill that your child is going to be using for the rest of their lives. They will be able to talk with their friends about a TV show without giving a replay of the entire thing. They will be able to summarize a project for their boss and even share key facts about the events in their lives. Open-ended questions provide children with the tools that they need to engage in a meaningful conversation about a topic. Moving on to the fourth component of the crowd strategy, the W. You will find this section stands for WH prompts. These prompts you might recognize from journalism or maybe storytelling. These are the who, the what, the when, the where, and how. They cover the facts of a story and they can be quick answers or more open-ended. Now, you might have noticed that there's a bit of overlap between W and some of the other strategies in crowd, and you're not wrong. Many of these are recall questions. They can also be open-ended questions or even distancing questions. Don't worry too much about the categories of the different types of questions that you're asking your child. The crowd strategy is meant to help you think about the different strategies for questions. So while I'm explaining how this strategy plays out, with a few bucks, we would love to hear from you in the chat. So please type into the chat your guess about which of the WH prompts might give you the longest form answers. And keep in mind that, again, these questions may be open-ended or closed, and that they ask your child to remember important information from the text. So again, we're going back to the very hungry caterpillar. With your elementary children, WH prompts are a great way to reinforce the parts of stories. The who corresponds with characters. Where and when are the setting. The what, how, and why are the plot, conflict, and resolution of a story. More examples of WH questions include, what is the caterpillar eating right now? Why did eating the leaf make the caterpillar feel better? Why is the leaf different from the other foods that he ate? The prompts, the WH prompts, help your child understand the different parts of a story. They're the important facts that we need in order to be able to tell a story to someone else. We need to know who was involved, where and when they were involved, what they were doing, and how. These types of questions help your child pick out the important details. In early elementary, these questions are simple, but as children get into more complex stories and nonfiction books, these answers are going to get more complicated. As these books become more and more complicated, sometimes it can be difficult to pick out the essential elements of a story or an event. And using these can help your child pick out those essential components. And I'm going to continue giving some more good examples of WH questions, such as where is Barry living at the end of the book? Why did his family leave New Orleans? What do you think will happen with Barry and Jay's comic book? And when did Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans? So I am moving on to the fourth component of the crowd strategy is distancing, and is the D. When we use distancing prompts, we're asking children to step outside the book to make connections to their own experiences and the world around them. These questions put children and their experiences at the center of the discussion. But these questions also help children understand that books connect with the real world. These can be some of the most fun questions to get kids excited about reading because they often give the child a way to give an opinion, and they usually start great conversations. So much learning can happen in a conversation. And again, distancing. What is distancing though? The distancing prompts help children make connections to their own experiences. These questions encourage children to make comparisons between books and other books, their own life experiences, and what they know of the world around them. So while I continue with this discussion and we're explaining how this strategy plays out with a few books, we'd love to hear from you in the chat. Please type yes or no into the chat about whether you think your child enjoys putting themselves into the book and telling you about what they would do if they were in the story. Again, these prompts let children connect what they have read in books to their own experiences or to the other books, to other books that they have read, which is great for building networks of information in their brains. Once they begin to see what they learn in one book, it can be applied to other areas. They create networks of information instead of separate facts. They connect information they've read in another book with their own experiences and what they've read in this book to create new connections. They also use these types of questions to develop empathy and think about other worldviews. We ask children how they would feel if they were in a similar situation and ask them what choices that they would make. Distancing prompts are a great way for children to interact with information in nonfiction books as well. Connect ideas and facts from more than one book, but also videos or school lessons. Excuse me. These are open-ended questions, and sometimes they start long discussions. Examples on distancing, the distancing prompt. Tell me about a time when you ate too much and got a stomachache. What did you do to make yourself feel better? What do you know about caterpillars? Do they really eat ice cream? Have you ever seen a caterpillar that looks like this one? Distancing prompts give an opportunity for older children as well to make connections to their own experiences. Older children might have more information about a topic. We can begin even before we read a book by activating their prior knowledge. We can ask our children what they already know about a topic. So as they read, they're already primed their brain to start forming connections. As they read, we're asking children to empathize with a character, which they do by understanding their motivation and situation, and we're pairing them with information they might already know from other books or movies or their own life experiences. It's a complex process, and this is a great time to bring out my favorite prompt. Tell me more. You can have some really great in-depth discussions picking apart character motivation and plots. And just to leave you with some distancing examples, what would you do if you were Barry is a great question. How would you feel if you were left alone like Cruz? If you could talk to Barry's family, what advice would you give them? And finally, what do you know about hurricanes? And with that, this concludes our in-depth discussion on the crowd strategy. And I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Michelle. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Lourdes.
Of
I
course.
hope that all of that information gave you an understanding of some different type of questions that you can ask your children while reading. Before we get into some practical use, I wanted to give you a little bit more detail about how we use these questions. We like to use these questions in pairs. We might ask a recall question and then follow it up with an open-ended question. Because first, we want to check that our child understands a piece of information, and then we ask them to use it. We might say, what has the caterpillar eaten today? Would you eat all those foods in a day? How do you think that would make you feel? We're going to use a variety of different types of questions, but we don't have to use every question type every time. When it's the first time we're reading a book, or if we're trying to get an older reader invested in a story, we might ask fewer questions, or we might stick with one-word answer questions just to check in. And prompts requiring a long discussion are great, but too many of those types of conversations can derail a whole story while we're reading. So oftentimes we will ask those after we've read a story or a chapter. This is an evolving process, and as you're working with your children, you want to use your own best judgment. Try out different types of questions and different types of prompts to get your children more involved in talking about their reading. And don't be afraid to share your opinions or your own wonderings and connections. Discussions are a two-way street, and the goal with these prompts is not to have your child memorize the entire book. We want them to take the information from the books they read and be able to use it. So we're going to give you an opportunity to put theory into practice by helping us create some questions. We've discussed the crowd strategy, so please use your memory of the presentation to type into the, we're going to ask you to type it in the question answer box because we can see it. The C, R, O, W, or D type question about today's strategy. Please use your phone to scan the QR code on your screen to access a resource with sample question prompts to help you generate questions for this task. If you're not able to access it through the QR code, there is an example of the strategy planning sheet on your screen, and you can use that and those sample questions to help you generate questions for this task. I'll give you a few moments to be able to write some of those questions that you create from C, R, O, W, or D, and from today's strategy of how you may ask those questions to your child while you're reading. So I'll give you a few moments to do that. I'll share with you why we love this example, because it proves that crowd is a great strategy for starting discussions with all ages and for all types of materials. Also, please save this link to this crowd strategy sheet as a resource to use when sharing a book at home with your child. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, learning more about the crowd strategy. And I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Erica, to wrap us up for this evening. Erica?
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. So we're going to give you, I hope Crowd has given you another way to think about having reading discussions with your child. Now is a great time to add more questions into the chat. If there's anything that's unclear, I'd love to have the opportunity to clear up any misunderstandings or give you additional information. So please click on that Q&A and share any of your questions that you have with us, or you can also send an email. I will be sharing our email at the end, so please feel free to follow up through email as well with any questions. We would like to introduce you to another potential reading resource, which is near and dear to my heart, and that is our New Worlds Reading Initiative. The New Worlds Reading Initiative is a family literacy engagement program established by statute under the guidance of House Speaker Chris Sprowls, and it is Florida's first statewide book delivery program. Our vision for New Worlds Reading is to first create at-home libraries for K-5 children who are not yet reading on grade level. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of that eligibility criteria when we get to the next slide. Next, we look to build caregivers' confidence and capacity to support their child's reading development by providing strategies, tips, and tools to encourage meaningful engagement. We also recognize the value in partnership, and we are thankful for the partnership with our schools, our districts, our community organizations, and families like yourselves. We aim to establish those community partnerships throughout the state to increase awareness and support children and families. We're excited to build excitement, and we've launched a statewide promotional campaign. Under the New Worlds Reading Initiative, corporate taxpayers can make monetary contributions to the University of Florida's Lastinger Center, and they'll receive a dollar-for-dollar tax credit against select Florida taxes. And the last piece of our mission is to develop teacher professional development. We look to develop our teacher experts in the science of reading through micro-credentials and create home school connections in literacy. Students who are eligible for New Worlds Reading Initiative include our Florida public and charter school students in kindergarten through 5th grade who are not yet reading on grade level. This includes students who are identified using the new FAST assessment, or if they receive Tier 2 or Tier 3 instruction in the area of reading. If you're not sure if your child is eligible, please reach out to your child's teacher. So a little bit about our books and our literacy resources. We're able to provide a wide range of high quality books because we have partnered with the world's largest publisher and book distributor of children's books, Scholastic, which you may have heard of before, right? We also consult with the Florida Department of Education to develop our growing book list of books that are offered through our program. Books include both fiction and nonfiction and cover a wide variety of genres and topics to appeal to students' interests. In each shipment, books are geared toward the topic students select during enrollment. Books are available in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole, as well as Braille. An important part of the New Worlds Reading Initiative is providing an opportunity for families and children to share the experience of a book together. With literacy resources for families included in each book shipment, we offer that opportunity. We are developing a number of family engagement supports as well. Interactive reading guides have been developed for all books for students kindergarten through 5th grade. All of our resources are available online, which include our interactive reading guides and online videos. And they're right on our website, newworldsreading.com. More resources and videos are being added to the website each month during the school year. New Worlds Reading website also contains a clearinghouse of information regarding other local, state, and national organizations and resources to help increase access to the supports needed for yourself and your children, as well as siblings and other family members. Here's a sample of our updated interactive reading guide that is available in year 2, right there on the screen. Another great resource is the New Worlds Reading Scholarship account. New Worlds Reading Scholarship, administered by Step Up for Students, offers families access to education savings accounts worth $500 each to pay for tuition and fees related to part-time tutoring, summer and after-school literacy programs, laptops, tablets, and more. And I will, I can't put this in the chat. We will, but we will definitely share the website with Tina to share out with you all of how to access the Step Up for Students.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Right now, we're going to take some time for some self-reflection. I have another QR code on our screen. Please share your thoughts about our presentation. Your feedback is certainly important to us to help to continue to develop meaningful workshops for our families. So we'll give you a few moments to scan and provide us some feedback before we close out for this evening. Okay, and as you are finishing, we have a couple asks of you. We would love, this is where our collaboration comes in. Here are some ways to get involved and help spread the word about New Worlds Reading. Our goal is to get as many eligible students enrolled in this free family literacy engagement program. That's right, it's 100% free. I will share a link with Tina again for the New Worlds Reading enrollment flyer. You can also be an ambassador by sharing the news about New Worlds Reading with other families, any community organizations you may be involved with, educators, anyone in your network. You can also follow us on social media to learn more about our events and all things New Worlds Reading. So please visit our website, newworldsreading.com, to learn more about our program and to enroll if you are not yet enrolled. Remember, our literacy resources and videos are available to all families, so please take advantage of our interactive reading guides and videos at newworldsreading.com. Also on your screen, you'll see our email address. So if you have any additional questions that you didn't have an opportunity to ask, please feel free. And we appreciate your time and your support. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I will turn it back over to Tina.
Okay, so at the moment, I don't see any other questions. I see that you ladies have been answering those throughout, so thank you very much. I do see our anonymous attendee that says thank you for all of the questions that she had that you guys have answered. And so I will be sure to send out any information that our attendees or folks that weren't able to join us live tonight after they watch the video. If they have questions, I'll definitely get that over to you guys. And so I just want to see if anybody else has any questions before we close for tonight. Okay. So I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us on tonight's Zoom. We appreciate your participation. Each week, you are available to connect with us for more informative presentations and discussions. Once again, I am Tina Folston Hayes, the Parent Academy Specialist of Educational Equity and Outreach for Alachua County Public Schools. Next week, we look forward to seeing you back Thursday, December 15th. We will be joined by parentguidance.org, who will be providing us information during our mental health segment. We hope to see you then, and have a great evening. If there is nothing else that anyone else has for me. All right. Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate you guys for joining us. We look forward to you all coming back and providing our families with some more information.
Thanks, Tina. Bye,
You're
everyone.
welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye.